The aroma of roasted chicken filled our cozy home, wrapping around me like a warm hug as I stirred the pot of creamy mashed potatoes. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was nearly 6, and I couldn't help but smile at the thought of another family dinner. Mark would be home soon, and Lily would come downstairs any minute now. I loved these moments where laughter and conversation danced in the air, creating a perfect illusion of our family life. "Dinner's almost ready," I called out, my voice echoing slightly in the kitchen. I could hear the faint tapping of Lily's fingers against her phone, the sound almost rhythmic. I peeked into the living room, where she sat sprawled on the couch, her eyes glued to the screen, completely absorbed in whatever had captured her attention. "Lily, can you help set the table?" I asked, trying to break through her digital bubble. "Yeah, sure, Mom," she replied absent-mindedly, barely looking up. A soft sigh escaped me as I returned to my cooking. I knew this new technology was a part of her world, but sometimes I missed the days when she would eagerly share every detail of her life with me. Just as I was placing the chicken on a serving platter, the front door creaked open and Mark stepped inside, shaking off the chill of the autumn air. "I'm home," he called, his voice rich and warm, making my heart flutter a little. "Welcome back. Dinner is ready," I said, turning to him with a smile. He came over and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close. I breathed in his familiar scent, a mix of his cologne and the outdoors. "Smells amazing, Sarah," he murmured, placing a soft kiss on my forehead. I felt a rush of affection for him, the way he always seemed to appreciate my efforts. "Thanks. I hope Lily will like it too," I replied, glancing at our daughter, who was now half-heartedly scrolling through her phone. "Hey, Lily, time to eat," Mark called, and she finally looked up, a half-smile appearing on her lips. "Coming," she chirped, tossing her phone onto the coffee table. We gathered around the dining table, the three of us, and I dished out the food, serving portions with loving care. "Mom, this chicken is the best," Lily exclaimed, her eyes lighting up as she took her first bite. I chuckled, feeling a swell of pride. "I'm glad you like it, sweetheart. I tried a new recipe." Mark reached over, squeezing my hand. "You've outdone yourself, as always." The conversation flowed easily, filled with anecdotes from Mark's day at work and Lily's latest school drama. We laughed as we shared stories, the warmth of our family cocooning us. But as the night wore on, I noticed Lily's attention drifting back to her phone, a subtle shift that tugged at my heart. After dinner, I busied myself clearing the table, the clinking of dishes punctuating our easy banter. Eventually, I excused myself to head to the bathroom. The hallway felt familiar, almost comforting, but as I approached the door, I thought I heard something strange. A muffled giggle, perhaps? Curiosity twisted in my gut, and I paused, contemplating whether to knock or just let it be. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to trust that everything was fine. After all, it was just the three of us in our perfect little world. But that odd noise tugged at my mind, urging me to investigate further. I leaned closer, my heart racing as I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. As I stood there, breath caught in my throat, I caught a glimpse through the slightly ajar door. My heart dropped as I saw Mark and Lily locked in an embrace that felt far too intimate, their faces close. A moment shared that shattered my understanding of our family bond. Shock coursed through me, and I instinctively stepped back, my mind racing as I tried to process what I had just witnessed. The walls of our seemingly perfect world began to crumble, leaving me grappling with confusion and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. I stumbled into our bedroom, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The scene I had just witnessed replayed in my mind like a broken record, each loop sending shockwaves through my body. Mark and Lily, my husband and my daughter, locked in an embrace that felt so wrong, so twisted. I leaned against the door, my breath coming in shallow gasps as I tried to make sense of what I had seen. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, the air thick with confusion and betrayal. "Sarah?" I heard Mark call from the bathroom, his voice casual, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I couldn't respond. I was frozen in place, my mind racing. How could they do this? What did it mean? I felt like I was on the brink of a cliff, teetering between disbelief and reality, and I didn't know which way I would fall. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the memory, but it was too vivid. The way they looked at each other, the intensity in their gaze. It was something I had never seen before. I had always thought of Mark as the devoted husband and Lily as my innocent little girl. But now I felt like I was peering into a hidden world that I had no right to see. "This can't be happening," I whispered to myself, hoping that somehow the very act of saying it would make it untrue. After what felt like an eternity, I forced myself to move, pacing the room like a caged animal. I couldn't confront them yet, not like this. I needed to gather my thoughts, to understand what had just shattered my world. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I considered the implications of what I had seen. I needed evidence. I needed to know if my fears were real or just the product of an overactive imagination. The next day was a blur. I watched Mark and Lily closely, my heart racing every time they exchanged a word or shared a glance. At breakfast, I noticed how Mark's eyes softened when Lily laughed at something on her phone. "You two are getting awfully close, aren't you?" I joked, my voice dripping with feigned lightness. They both looked at me, startled, and I could almost see the tension in the air. "Just a funny meme," Lily replied quickly, her cheeks flushing slightly. Mark shot me a look, one that I couldn't quite decipher, but felt unsettling nonetheless. "Right," I said, forcing a smile. "We should all have more family laughs." But inside, I was churning with suspicion. This wasn't just a funny meme. It was something deeper, something darker that I couldn't yet put my finger on. As the day wore on, I noted every little interaction. When Mark brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face as he passed her in the living room, my stomach twisted. I had always thought of him as a caring father, but now it felt like a line was being crossed. The way he leaned in to hear her whisper something made my skin crawl. I fought the urge to confront them right then and there, but I couldn't. My fear of what I might discover was paralyzing. That evening, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood, hoping to clear my mind. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the houses, but it felt surreal, like I was watching a movie where everything seemed perfect on the surface. I passed by the Johnsons' house, where laughter spilled out into the cool air, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. How could they be so blissfully unaware of the chaos that was brewing in my own home? When I returned, Mark was watching TV and Lily was in her room. I felt the weight of the silence pressing down on me. I could confront them now, lay all my cards on the table, but what if I was wrong? What if my suspicions were just a figment of my imagination? The thought terrified me. I climbed into bed, the covers feeling heavier than usual. I picked up my phone, scrolling through social media mindlessly, but nothing could distract me from the turmoil in my heart. I needed answers, but I didn't know where to start. As I drifted into a restless sleep, I knew that I was on the edge of something monumental, and I couldn't walk away from it. The truth was out there, hidden beneath the surface, and I was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. I sank into the plush couch, my mind swirling with confusion and fear. Emily's dismissive laughter echoed in my ears, a haunting reminder of my vulnerability. Sarah, you're just being paranoid. Mark loves you. And Lily is just a teenager going through a phase, she had said, her tone light and airy, as if my worries were nothing more than a passing cloud. But could she really understand the depth of my turmoil? I wasn't just being paranoid. I had witnessed something that shattered my perception of my family. Maybe you're right, I had replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. But deep down, I felt a gnawing doubt. Was I losing my grip on reality? I could still picture the way Mark held Lily, the warmth between them that felt far too intimate for a father-daughter relationship. I needed answers, but the thought of confronting them paralyzed me. With a heavy heart, I decided to take matters into my own hands. After breakfast the next morning, I stood by the window watching the familiar sight of Mark leaving for work. He waved cheerfully, his briefcase in hand, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I had to know what he was up to. I followed him, my heart pounding with every step. As I trailed behind, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. The drive through town felt like a blur. I barely registered the passing shops and pedestrians. My mind raced with possibilities. What if he was meeting someone? What if it was the woman from my nightmares? I parked a discreet distance from the coffee shop where Mark had pulled in. He walked inside, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I might discover. I could barely focus as I watched him through the glass. Mark leaned against the counter, chatting with a woman whose face blurred in my vision. My stomach twisted as I squinted, desperate to catch a glimpse of her. She had long, curly hair and an easy smile that seemed to light up the room. Mark laughed at something she said, and I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. Why was he smiling like that? My hands trembled at my sides, and I considered bursting through the door, demanding answers. But I stayed rooted in place, my heart racing as I watched their interaction. After what felt like an eternity, Mark leaned closer to her, his body language intimate. My breath hitched in my throat, and I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. I turned away, my heart heavy with despair, and drove home, the weight of my suspicions pressing down on me like a suffocating blanket. When I walked through the front door, the house felt eerily quiet. I headed towards the kitchen, hoping to distract myself with a chore or two. But as I reached for a dish, I heard a soft sobbing coming from the living room. My heart sank. I rushed toward the sound, finding Lily curled up on the couch, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Lily, what's wrong?" I knelt beside her, my maternal instincts kicking in. She looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy. I don't want to talk about it," she stammered, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Please, honey, you can tell me anything." I tried to keep my voice steady, even as my heart raced with worry. "It's school," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm behind in my classes, and everyone is just so overwhelming." I drew her into my arms, holding her close as I felt the weight of her struggles. "I'm here for you, Lily. We can figure this out together." But even as I comforted her, my mind was elsewhere. The image of Mark with that woman loomed over me, mingling with the worry for my daughter. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more beneath the surface. "Mom," Lily's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to her. "Are you okay? You seem distant." "I'm fine, sweetheart," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just a long day, I suppose." But as I held her, I couldn't ignore the nagging sensation in my gut. My family was unraveling before my eyes, and I was powerless to stop it. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As night fell, The weight of my suspicions pressed heavily on my chest. I sat on the edge of our bed, my mind racing with thoughts of Mark and Lily. I had almost convinced myself that I was overreacting when I heard them laughing together downstairs earlier, but the laughter felt different, charged with an intimacy that made my stomach churn. I steeled myself to confront Mark about the mysterious woman I had seen him with. He had dismissed my fears as mere paranoia, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. "Mark," I called out when he finally returned home from work, my heart pounding in my ears. He looked up from his briefcase, his brow furrowing slightly. "We need to talk." "About what?" he asked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice as he set his bag down. "About that meeting you had today," I said, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. "The one with the woman." He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "Sarah, it was just a business meeting. You know how it is, corporate stuff, nothing more." "Corporate stuff?" I pressed, my voice rising a notch. "It looked a lot more personal than that. You didn't even mention her before." "Maybe I didn't think it was worth mentioning," he replied, his tone dismissive. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. Just trust me." Trust. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I wanted to trust him, to believe that I was letting my imagination run wild. But the memory of that embrace between him and Lily gnawed at me. "Do you really expect me to just ignore how it looked?" I challenged. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're jumping to conclusions, Sarah. I love you, and you know that. Our family is strong. Is it?" I whispered, feeling the tears welling up in my eyes. "Because I'm not so sure anymore." As he stepped closer, I could see the concern etched on his face. "What's going on with you? You're acting paranoid." Paranoid. The word echoed in my head, twisting my thoughts. I wished I could brush it off like he did, but the more I tried to convince myself that everything was fine, the more doubt crept in. I felt the distance growing between us, a chasm of unspoken words and hidden truths. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The house felt too quiet, and every creak of the floorboards sent my heart racing. I rolled onto my side, straining to hear any sounds from Lily's room. That's when I caught snippets of a conversation between Mark and her. Their voices were low, but the tone was unmistakably affectionate. "Lily, you know I care about you, right?" Mark said softly. My heart stopped. Was it about school? Was it about the problems she had been facing? Or was it something more? "Yeah, Dad, I know," Lily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just feel like sometimes I don't know if I'm doing the right thing." The vulnerability in her voice tugged at my heart, but I also felt a surge of protectiveness. I needed to know what they were talking about. I pushed myself up slightly, straining to hear more. "Just remember, I'm always here for you no matter what," Mark reassured her. I could feel my heart racing. What does that even mean? I muttered to myself, trying to piece together their relationship. I couldn't take it anymore. I slipped out of bed and crept toward Lily's room, hoping to overhear more. But as I approached, the door creaked and I froze. Had they noticed my presence? Suddenly, I heard the bathroom door click open. Mark was stepping out, oblivious to my eavesdropping. I ducked back into the shadows, my heart pounding. The tension in the air was suffocating, and I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something I couldn't control. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of dread. Sleep had come in fits, tortured by the swirling thoughts of betrayal and doubt. As Mark showered, I made the decision to check his phone, my hands trembling with anxiety. I knew it was wrong, but desperation clouded my judgment. I tiptoed into the bathroom, glancing at the closed shower door, then quickly snatched his phone from the bedside table. My heart raced as I scrolled through his messages. Flirty exchanges filled the screen, words that felt as intimate as a kiss. Can't stop thinking about you. One read. Another. Tonight was perfect, just like you. My breath caught in my throat, and the world around me faded away. I felt shattered, but I couldn't allow myself to break just yet. I had to confront him, had to demand answers. But as I glanced back at the shower, I realized I was standing on the precipice of an emotional storm, ready to unleash everything I had bottled up inside. I felt the heat rising in my chest as I stood in the living room, clutching Mark's phone like a lifeline, the incriminating messages still flashing in my mind. My heart raced as I confronted him, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Mark, we need to talk." Now, he looked up from the couch, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What's wrong? Sarah? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't hold back any longer. "It's about the texts, the ones you sent to whoever she is." I thrust the phone toward him, my hands shaking. "You can't deny it. I saw everything." Mark's expression shifted from confusion to irritation. "Texts? What are you talking about?" "You're being paranoid, Sarah. You know I have clients to deal with. This is ridiculous." "Ridiculous?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You think this is just my imagination? I saw you and Lily. I saw the way you were with her. And now I find these messages." "Stop," he snapped, his voice low but fierce. "You're taking this too far. Lily is my daughter. Whatever you think you saw, it's not what you think." His defensiveness only fueled my anger. "No, Mark, you're the one who's not seeing clearly." I shot back, my heart pounding. "You're betraying me. You've betrayed our family. How can you even look me in the eye after everything?" Mark stood up abruptly, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry for being a father to our daughter? For caring about her? Is that what this is? Caring?" I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. "This isn't just caring, Mark. It's something else entirely. You need to admit it." He shook his head, the tension in his posture palpable. "You're twisting this into something it's not. I can't believe you're doing this to me. To us. Us." I scoffed, tears brimming in my eyes. "What about what we built together? Our marriage? Do you even care? Or is that just another illusion?" I turned away, unable to look at him any longer. The pain of betrayal gnawed at my insides, and I felt so helpless. I needed to escape, to find some clarity in this chaos. I moved to the hallway, my mind racing back to the years we'd spent together. Our dreams, our laughter, our love. Had it all been a facade? I stumbled into our bedroom and went straight to my desk, where I kept my old journals. They had been my refuge through many storms, a place to pour out my heart and soul. As I flipped through the pages filled with memories, I was struck by the contrast between my hopes and the reality I faced now. Why didn't I see it? I whispered to myself, tears spilling onto the pages. The entries chronicled our life. The good days, the struggles, the moments of doubt I had ignored. I found myself reflecting on the subtle signs I had brushed aside. The late nights, the vague excuses, the distance that had crept between us over the years. As I continued to read, one letter caught my eye. It was addressed to me from Mark, written years ago on an ordinary day that now felt so distant. I remembered the day vividly. He had surprised me with a picnic in the park. "Dear Sarah," it began, "I find myself struggling with things I can't explain. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed, and I wish I could share that burden with you, but I don't want to worry you. I love you more than you know." My heart raced as I read on. It hinted at fears and insecurities he had never shared with me, dark secrets he had kept locked away. but there were no explanations for the kiss, no justification for the intimacy I had witnessed. The revelation only deepened my confusion. "Why didn't you trust me, Mark?" I murmured as I closed the journal, the weight of the letter heavy in my hands. I was left with more questions than answers, and the ache in my heart felt insurmountable. I longed for clarity, for truth, but all I had was the gnawing fear that the man I loved was slipping away from me, taking our family with him. I stood at the threshold of Lily's room, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum, each beat resonating with the weight of the truth I desperately sought. I could feel the air thick with tension, a palpable anxiety that seemed to swirl around me as I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The walls, once a sanctuary, felt like a prison, each object a reminder of the life we had built together as a family. "Lily," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. I need to know the truth." Lily sat cross-legged on her bed, her expression a mixture of confusion and fear. The glow from her laptop illuminated her face, casting shadows that danced across her features. "Mom, I don't know what you mean," she stammered, avoiding my gaze. "Don't play games with me, sweetheart. I saw you and Dad. I saw the way he held you." My words hung in the air, heavy and charged. I could see her eyes widen, the realization of what I was implying washing over her like a tidal wave of dread. "Mom, please," she finally looked at me, her voice a whisper. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Lily? Because I don't understand. I can't make sense of any of this." I felt the tears welling up, threatening to spill over. "I need to understand what's happening between you two." Just as she opened her mouth to speak, the door swung open and Mark stepped in, a casual smile on his face that faltered the moment he saw the tension between us. "What's going on?" he asked, his brows knitting together in concern. "This is not a conversation for you, Mark," I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. "Sarah, please," he said, stepping further into the room, his expression shifting from confusion to defensiveness. "What are you accusing us of?" "Accusing? I'm not accusing anyone. I'm simply trying to get to the bottom of this." I was practically shouting now, my emotions spilling over like a broken dam. "Mom, it's not what you think," Lily interjected, her voice gaining strength. "We were working on something together, an idea for a charity project. The kiss, it was staged for a promotional video." My heart raced as I processed her words. A promotional video? For what? I could feel the skepticism in my voice, the doubt gnawing at me. Mark stepped closer to Lily, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's true, Sarah. We've been collaborating on a charity initiative to help local families in need. We wanted it to be impactful, and we thought a video would help convey our message." "A kiss? That was your idea of impactful?" I questioned, incredulity flooding my senses. "You didn't think that maybe, just maybe, it would look inappropriate, especially after what I saw?" Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Mom, we didn't mean for it to look that way. We were just trying to create something meaningful. It got a bit out of hand, and I'm sorry." I felt the ground shift beneath me. The anger I had felt moments before began to dissolve into confusion. "But why didn't you tell me? Why keep it a secret?" I asked, my voice softer now, laced with hurt. Mark sighed, his shoulders sagging. "We didn't think you would understand. I didn't want to worry you, Sarah. I thought it would be better to surprise you with the finished project." "Surprise? This isn't a surprise. This is a betrayal." I shook my head, feeling torn between the love I had for my family and the fear of the unknown. "I need time to process all of this. I can't just accept it like that." "Mom, Please don't shut us out, Lily pleaded, her voice cracking. We're still your family. We love you. I need to think, I muttered, stepping back, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. I turned to leave the room, my mind racing. Had I been wrong to jump to conclusions? Or was there still something more buried beneath the surface? As I walked away, I could feel their eyes on me, filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. The truth was, I didn't know what to believe anymore. The love I had for them felt overshadowed by an unsettling doubt. My heart ached with the realization that trust, once broken, was not easily mended.